The suitcase slammed against the counter, wheels spinning like severed limbs. "He's not family here," my own daughter said, while strangers froze mid-step. I didn't speak. Silence was sharper than any blade. Subscribe if you believe no parent should face this. My name is Frank Holloway. I'm 68 years old, from Phoenix, Arizona, about 10 minutes from the Desert Botanical Garden. The sound of it hitting the tile still haunts me. Not because it was loud, no. It wasn't a bang or a crash. It was a hollow, decisive thud that seemed to echo out into everything that came after. It was the kind of sound that doesn't end when it stops. It lingers in the bones, in the jaw, in the pit of your stomach. Wheels rattled once, then stopped. People around us froze, but for me, everything sped up. My heart thudded in my chest like a bass drum, out of sync, too fast, and then her voice came, sharp, clear, surgical. "Leave! Now! You're not family anymore." She didn't shout, she didn't cry, she didn't whisper it either. She declared it like it was a fact, like gravity, like death. A little girl nearby, maybe 6, maybe 7, dropped her juice bottle. It clattered and rolled. She didn't pick it up, just stared. A woman next to me clutched her handbag tighter and stepped back, her eyes flicking between me and Sam like we were about to break into a fistfight. But there was no fight, just me, standing there in silence. And the suitcase, its contents now slightly exposed, like a wound that had started to gape. Shirts half folded, wrinkled by the sudden stop. One of my Medicare letters fluttered out like a white flag of surrender. A bottle of cholesterol pills had cracked open inside the side mesh, scattering little white capsules like teeth across the bottom. I should have said something clever, something strong, but I didn't. Not because I couldn't, but because for once everything was crystal clear. That was the moment. The exact moment everything in me, every doubt, every fear, every buried suspicion, locked into place like teeth in a trap. It was just past noon last summer. Phoenix sky, cruel and cloudless, blazed like a welder's torch overhead. Inside Terminal 4 at Sky Harbor, the AC fought bravely, but sweat still crawled down my spine like a spider. People bustled past in clusters, families laughing, businessmen shouting into phones, vacationers fumbling with passports. Bright screens blinked out flight delays and gate changes, but I wasn't going on vacation. I wasn't even traveling by choice. This wasn't a trip. It was a sentence. And the judge was my daughter, Samantha, or Sam as she insists on being called now. Like Samantha is too soft, too emotional, too close to the girl who used to braid my thinning hair with little pink clips and say, "You're my hero, Daddy." I still have one of those crayon cards in a drawer. She drew a picture of me in a cape, wrote, "I'll never leave you, Daddy," in big shaky letters. That was before. Now she deals in documents. Not hugs, not phone calls. Documents. Cold, precise, stamped, signed, notarized. Last week she told me she'd booked something nice. Her voice was calm, like a nurse explaining a diagnosis she'd given 1,000 times. "A resort-style senior living community," she said, flipping through her tablet like it was a catalog. "Just for a few weeks, Dad." To get your feet under you, I looked at her sideways. "I don't need assisted living," she smiled. A tight, manufactured smile that didn't touch her eyes. "It's not that. It's preventative. You've been getting forgetful. I hadn't. Not really. Not dangerously. Just quiet. There's a difference. Quiet doesn't mean lost. Quiet means I've learned when speaking changes nothing." The day she drove me to the airport, she didn't say much. Didn't ask if I brought my sweater. Didn't ask about my Kindle. Didn't ask anything. She drove like a chauffeur, eyes forward, window up. Her phone sat in the center console, buzzing every few minutes with messages she didn't bother to hide. One of them popped up as I glanced over. "Dropped the package off." Should have the papers by Tuesday package. Papers. My gut churned, not from fear, from something heavier, something that had been building for months, maybe years. I didn't ask who the message was to. I didn't have to. The answer was already sitting in the silence between us. She dropped me off at departures, didn't park, didn't help with my bags, just popped the trunk, stepped out in heels too clean for emotion, and yanked the suitcase out like it was a favor. I reached for a hug. She stepped back, then she dropped it. That sound again. Final. Non-negotiable. The suitcase hit the tile and skidded forward. "You're not family," she said. No emotion, just a statement of record. Even the agent behind the counter blinked. Not he's not well, not Hema needs support. Just not family. Like I was a stranger in the system now. No file, no next of kin, no forwarding address. And it struck me then. People don't always exile you with yelling. Sometimes they do it with paperwork, with calm tones, with a well-timed smile and the phrase, "It's for your own good." The boarding pass in my hand may as well have been a termination notice. Seat 32, D, one way, no return flight, no one waiting on the other side. It wasn't about where I was going. It was about what she wanted me to leave behind. Her life, her image, her clean narrative. I bent slowly, knees aching, back stiff, and picked up the suitcase like it had aged 10 years in 1 minute. It felt heavier now, heavier than luggage should feel, heavier than the years we shared, heavier than silence. I looked at her once more. She didn't meet my eyes. She was already walking away, phone in hand, hair bouncing behind her, shoes tapping against tile like punctuation marks to a chapter she was done reading. I turned toward the gate. I didn't hunch, didn't shuffle. I walked upright, eyes forward, head steady, because when dignity is all you have left, you carry it like a shield, and sometimes the only power you still possess is the power not to scream. 6 months before the suitcase hit the tile, things still look normal from the outside, and that's the dangerous part. From the sidewalk, everything looked stable. My grass was trimmed. My porch light still flickered on at sunset. There was a wreath on the door, one of those seasonal ones Samantha ordered for me, plastic maple leaves and faux burlap. Neighbors waved, I waved back. The mailman still left my packages just to the left of the mat, because he knew that's where my knees bent easiest. Inside, the coffee still brewed at 6:10. The same mug, the same 2 sugars, the same shaky hand reaching for it. And Samantha, she still visited. Weekends, mostly. She'd show up in sleek clothes that smelled like car air freshener and office printer toner. Hair always pinned back just enough to say, "I don't have time to stay long." She'd bring overpriced coffee in a cardboard tray, like it was a peace offering wrapped in whipped cream. "Hi, Dad," she'd say, pressing a kiss to the top of my head without sitting down. "I brought that macchiato you like. You look tired. You sleeping all right?" And I'd nod, smile, lie. We'd sit at the kitchen table, hers for maybe 20 minutes. She'd cross her legs and launch into a rapid-fire update on her week. Staff meetings, client issues, something about her boss forgetting her name again. Then, like clockwork, "So, how are the knees holding up?" I'd answer, "They ache." She'd give a sympathetic hum and look out the window. "I told you we should install a ramp." "But I still use the stairs, Sam." She didn't answer. To anyone watching, it was a picture of a responsible daughter and a grateful father. A family doing the right thing. But if you looked closer, if you listened just beneath the warmth, there were cracks forming. Hairline fractures that didn't show until pressure hit them just right. And I started to feel that pressure the day she brought the paper. We were sitting in the living room. TV off. Ceiling fan humming faintly above us like a timer winding down. She reached into her leather tote and pulled out a single-page document. Folded once. Clean corners. Business weight paper. "Just a small form, Dad," she said, sliding it across the coffee table like a receipt for lunch. "Helps with your bills." "You know, if something ever happened," I glanced down. "Durable power of attorney." The letters were bold. Capitalized. Final. I raised my eyebrows. "Samantha," I said, "what's this really for?" She didn't flinch. "It's just precaution. You trust me, right?" And that was the hook? Of course I trusted her. I trusted her when she had chicken pox and sobbed into my chest at 3 a.m. I trusted her when I skipped my wife's funeral reception just to hold her hand in the car when she couldn't face the crowd. I trusted her when she said I'd never be alone. So I signed it, not because I believed it was harmless, but because I believed she was. Weeks passed. Normal continued, until it didn't. The first warning bell came in the form of an email from my bank. Statement has been forwarded to your designated financial representative. Designated. Then I noticed my credit card had been charged at a spa. $297 for something called stone rebalance therapy. I hadn't been touched by a stone unless I stepped on one in the garden. I showed her the transaction. Oh, she said, brushing it off. That was an admin oversight. It's all under one payment profile now. Payment profile. Then came Friday. A warm afternoon. Light bouncing through the blinds like it was trying to warn me. I walked into my kitchen and found a man crouched near the sink cabinet, flashlight in hand. Sorry, sir, he said without looking up. Just here to check the wood for water damage. The realtor requested a full assessment before market listing. Realtor? I felt the back of my neck tighten. I called out, Sam? She came down the stairs calmly. No surprise, no apology, just resolution. Oh, that? She said, already halfway through a text. It's just a market eval, Dad. You said once you might move someday, remember? I'm just helping. I stared at her. She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't need to, because something in her had already made peace with the lie. That night, I sat on my porch, sun dipping behind the roof lines, painting shadows across the sidewalk, and I realized I wasn't home anymore. I was just occupying space. Space she was slowly reclaiming. Mail started arriving with her name on it, utility bills, an Amazon box addressed to Samantha Holloway, co-resident. My prescriptions? Rerouted. She said it was for efficiency. Then came the garage. She installed a digital keypad on the door that connected it to the kitchen. I found out the hard way, hands full of groceries, sweat beading down my temple, when the door wouldn't open. I pounded, yelled, waited. She opened it 15 minutes later, hair wet, bathrobe on. Oh, sorry, Dad. The new smart system locked everyone out by mistake. But when I checked the app the next morning, I saw the settings. She had marked me as a temporary resident, a guest in my own blueprint. That night, I sat at the edge of my bed. The light from my lamp cast long shadows on the wall. I watched them stretch and flicker like they were searching for a way out, too. It wasn't the betrayal that hurt. It was the planning, the precision. She wasn't reacting. She was executing. She wasn't losing patience. She was making room. I brought it up over dinner. We were sitting across from each other. The table felt longer than usual. She picked at her salad like it offended her. You're imagining things, Dad. She didn't look up. No, I said quietly. I'm remembering them. That stopped her hand. She pushed her plate back slowly, looked at me with a smile that wasn't really a smile. You're not as sharp as you used to be, she said. Maybe it's time we talked about your living situation. Her tone wasn't emotional. It was administrative, like she was filing a claim. She had the plan. I was just being walked into it. 3 days later, an envelope arrived. Inside, glossy brochures, photos of smiling seniors in golf carts, wide porches, bingo nights, a sticky note tucked between the pages. Let's talk Sunday. Love, Sam. But Sunday didn't come. Instead, the phone rang. Her husband. Brian. His voice was warm. Too warm. Hey, Frank. Sam's just overwhelmed. She says you've been a little tough lately. She's trying to help. Really tough? I hadn't raised my voice in months. I hadn't questioned a single charge. Hadn't asked about the paperwork. Hadn't challenged anything. But still, I was being framed. As difficult. As a problem. As a burden. The final straw. I opened a drawer in the den and found a neatly printed document. Holloway Estate Transition Plan. header in blue, bullet points beneath, transfer of assets, timeline, projected expenses, my name, 5 times, next to one repeated word, transfer, not discuss, not consult, just transfer. I sat down in the chair, folded the paper, placed it back inside the drawer, carefully, deliberately, because some things you don't confront, not right away. Some things you watch and you wait, because knowing is sometimes more powerful than reacting, because silence can be a shield until it isn't. 3 weeks before the airport, I sat on the porch in my usual spot. The old swing creaked beneath me, each sway slower than the last. The metal chains had begun to rust where they met the beam above, making a soft, rhythmic protest every time the wooden slats shifted under my weight. I liked that sound. Predictable. Honest. The sun was melting into the horizon, painting the front lawn in a wash of orange and deepening shadow. My coffee sat untouched beside me, half full, lukewarm now. A breeze stirred the dust, carrying the unmistakable scent of something burning. Maybe a grill. Maybe someone's fireplace in the wrong season. Maybe, just maybe, the slow, quiet roast of bridges I hadn't realized were already ash. I listened to the neighborhood shift from day to evening, children's laughter fading, a lawnmower sputtering one last time, someone slamming a car door 2 houses down. But Samantha didn't come by. No text, no call. Instead, I heard dress shoes on the path. Jason. He walked like a man used to smooth flooring, each step unsure on gravel, like the earth offended him. Pressed chinos, a pale blue polo shirt, aviator sunglasses perched neatly atop his head. That same cologne trailed behind him like a warning. Citrus, leather, and artificial importance. He smiled as he approached, the kind of smile you rehearse in a mirror before court. In his hand, a Starbucks cup, venti, double-sleeved. He set it on the wicker table beside me, careful not to make eye contact. "Thought you might like something cool," he said. I didn't touch it. I never drank Starbucks. He knew that. Jason stood for a second, hands in his pockets. Then he exhaled like this was harder for him than for me. "We need to start packing up some things, Frank," he said it lightly. Like we were moving a college kid out of a dorm, not shuffling a man out of his own life. I let the words settle. Didn't respond right away. Watched a hummingbird dive toward the feeder before flitting away again. "Packing?" I asked, voice low. He cleared his throat, adjusted his stance like the porch swing might bite. "The community, the one in Flagstaff. They're moving up your intake date. Some slots opened up." His words were slick, practiced, like they'd been run through committee before reaching my ears. I looked past him across the lawn to the rosebush my wife had planted the spring before she died. She'd named each bloom, treated them like daughters. Now they stood quiet, dry around the edges, forgotten. "We already discussed that for fall," I said softly. "It's not even summer solstice yet." He offered me a smile that made my stomach tighten, tight-lipped, full of pity and hollow. "I know change is tough, but Sam thinks this is best. The word clanged like a dropped wrench. That night, I heard whispers. I was walking past the guest room when I heard her voice, Samantha's, muffled by distance, sharpened by betrayal. "He won't fight it. I've got the medical pre-screen faked already. He just needs a confusion episode. The nurse'll say it was dehydration." My feet stopped, right there in the hall. I didn't make a sound. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. And that was the betrayal. Not the plan. Not the lies. But the fact that my heart didn't break, it only nodded. The next day, I asked for a ride to the pharmacy. She barely looked up from her phone. "I already filled your meds for the week," she said, handing me a pre-packed organizer. 7 compartments. No labels. 2 unfamiliar pills. Blue ovals I'd never seen before. I looked at her. Her face didn't change. "Something wrong?" she asked, tone light, eyes still locked on her screen. "No," I replied. And later that night, I flushed them. watched them swirl away down the drain like the last remnants of trust. That week, I started locking my bedroom door, started hiding spare keys in the hollow leg of the desk lamp, taped a list of my passwords behind the headboard, started making copies of everything, bank statements, IDS, insurance papers, and sealing them in a Ziploc under the porch floorboard. I even downloaded a recording app on my old phone. Left it running whenever we talked, just in case. I had to be careful. I couldn't act like a man under siege, because once they think you're scared, they treat you like you're sick. But I wasn't sick. I was watching. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. I was in the hallway, adjusting a crooked picture frame when I heard her voice, clearer this time. Speakerphone. Volume up too loud. Dad's not really my problem anymore. He's just like a roommate that doesn't pay rent. Once we get the place, I'll feel better. Laughter. Then Meredith's voice. You sure he won't contest it? He can't, Sam said, casual. He signed the POA, and the memory test I set up will fail him by design. Another laugh, soft, cruel, like they were talking about a clearance sale. I stood there, back to the wall, hands in my pockets to keep from shaking. Later that night, I pulled an old photo album off the shelf, sat in the dark with it in my lap, flipped through the pages like they might talk back. One picture stopped me, Samantha at age 6, missing front teeth, gaping grin, holding my hand at the Grand Canyon. She'd scribbled, Daddy's my big strong mountain on the back. Now she was trying to bury me in paperwork. But life has a funny way of throwing you a rope right as you near the edge. Mine came in the form of Carol. She was my neighbor's niece. Moved in for nursing school rotations. Early 30s, maybe. Kind eyes. Called everyone sir until you told her not to. She saw me struggling with the garden hose one afternoon. My hands were shaking from the weight and the heat. You okay there? She asked, gently. Need help? That turned into a conversation. Then coffee. Then dinner. Not romance. Just humanity. She listened, didn't interrupt, didn't assume. She didn't pat my hand and say, I understand. She just said, That's awful. I'm sorry. She called me Frank. One cloudy afternoon, she brought over soup and a story. I used to work in elder care, she said. You wouldn't believe how many kids try to warehouse their parents before the will's even dry. I stirred the soup but didn't eat. What would you do if it were you? I asked. She looked out the window for a long moment. I'd disappear, she said finally. Let them wonder. Leave them a story, not a signature. That line stuck. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, turning those words over in my head like smooth stones. The next morning, I called my attorney, asked him a simple question. What's the legal status on digital? Will updates? He answered without hesitation. As long as you're competent and have witnesses, it's legal. Even mid-flight, I didn't tell him why I asked, just said thank you. Then double-checked all my logins. Bank, email, secure storage. Back inside the house, Samantha was waiting for me in the living room. She smiled like someone presenting a gift, handed me a sealed folder. Your plane ticket, she said, her voice calm. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I opened it. Seat 32D. Non-refundable. Like me. She looked relieved, like a task had been completed. But she had underestimated one thing. I may have been quiet, but I wasn't weak. I may have signed her forms, but I never signed away my will. And by the time that plane left the runway, I'd made damn sure she understood the difference. The morning of the flight, Samantha was all smiles. Not the kind that reaches the eyes. The kind that comes with a checkbox, a task nearly done. She stood at the bottom of the staircase, arms crossed, wearing a crisp white blouse with buttons so perfectly aligned it looked starched by intent. Her slacks were tailored, her flats spotless. Hair coiled back into a bun so tight it looked like she was bracing for war. She didn't ask how I slept, didn't comment on the weather. No, want some toast? Or did you take your pills? She just looked at her watch and said, Try not to miss the window. Intake has a wait list now. We didn't speak on the drive, just the sound of tires against the road and the occasional ding of her email notifications. Her phone sat in the center console, screen lighting up every few seconds with updates from banks, realtors, and God knows who else. I stared out the passenger window, watched as the city unspooled like a film I'd already seen. Strip malls, cactus silhouettes, billboards that promised miracles in 6 weeks or less. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was calculated, like she thought speaking might open the door to discussion, and she didn't want discussion. She wanted departure. At the terminal, she pulled into departures and stopped the car a little too fast. Her hands never left the wheel. "There you go," she said. No smile this time, just efficiency. I opened the door slowly, legs stiff, and stepped out onto the concrete. The suitcase I brought, one she'd gifted me last Father's Day, felt like a final joke. Navy blue, plastic wheels. Still had the price tag tucked in a side flap. I bet she put it on my card. I bent over to adjust the zipper. It had caught on the inner lining. She rolled her eyes, the kind of roll you save for toddlers and slow drivers. Then she yanked it from my hands, knelt, and unzipped it aggressively, right there on the curb. "This is what I mean," she snapped. "You didn't even pack right. This is why you need help." The zipper gave out with a pop. The suitcase fell, open. Papers fluttered out like birds startled from a cage. A bottle of blood pressure pills bounced across the sidewalk, skittering like marbles in all directions. People looked. A mother shielded her son's eyes like she expected a meltdown. Samantha didn't flinch, didn't kneel, didn't help. She stood upright, smoothed her blouse, and turned to the gate agent behind the glass. "He's not family here." The words were flat, clinical, not angry, just factual, like saying, "That seat's taken." I didn't speak, not because I was shocked, because I'd already decided she didn't deserve a scene. Dignity at its quietest is still the loudest answer. I picked up the papers. My knees groaned, but I didn't rush. Slipped the pill bottle back into the mesh, zipped the suitcase shut. Then I stood up and walked toward security, not slowly, not defeated, just steady. Inside the terminal, I passed through the metal detectors. The TSA agent barely looked up. I nodded. He nodded back. I found an empty chair near gate C19 and sat. Let out a slow breath. Then I pulled out my phone. Carol had helped me set it all up 2 nights before. We'd sat at the kitchen table. She leaned in gently, never pushing. She didn't say much, just helped me reset passwords, walked me through secure logins, and made sure every button I'd need was already lit up. "Just in case you need to do it on the go," she said. Now my hands hovered over the screen. A part of me trembled. But it wasn't fear. It was clarity. It was finally knowing. I opened the digital portal to my attorney's office. A blue screen. White text. Secure encryption loaded instantly. I tapped. Update. Will, it guided me through 5 sections, one by one, each one like a breath taken deeper than the last. Beneficiaries, medical proxies, property holdings, cash assets, emergency instructions. I paused for a second. The names on those lines had been the same for a decade, typed in trust, left unchallenged. Now I erased them, all of them. Instead of Samantha Holloway, I typed Carolyn Mendez. Under relationship, I didn't write neighbor. I wrote daughter by choice, because that's what she was. Not by blood, but by action, by witness. She would receive everything: the house, the savings, my pension payout, the dusty, dignified old watch collection I'd spent years curating, and the story I was leaving behind. There was a final screen, a red button, submit and notarize. It needed 2 digital witnesses. I messaged my attorney. "Can you and Marta sign remotely?" "I'm about to board." His reply came back fast. "We're on. You okay?" I typed, "Better than I've been in months." I hit the button. Done. Final. Legally binding. 30 minutes later, I was in seat 32. D, middle seat. right over the wing. Samantha didn't wave goodbye, didn't follow me to the gate, didn't check to see if the plane had left. She assumed the job was done, that I was boxed, shipped, and signed for, contained. 2 rows behind me, a young man helped his grandfather adjust an oxygen mask, their heads close, words soft. Across the aisle, a toddler gripped a worn teddy bear like it was armor. And me? I stared out the window. Clouds rose like mountains. Sunlight bounced off the wing like polished silver. And I was rewriting legacy at 30,000 feet. When we landed, I expected a man in uniform, a clipboard, a van with a wheelchair lift. Instead, I saw her, Carol. She stood just past the baggage claim, holding a thermos of tea and smiling. Not wide, not performative, just real. Ready for your new chapter? She asked. I nodded, and in that moment, I realized I hadn't felt free in years. We drove north, out of Phoenix, past the edge of the city where the cacti stop looking decorative and start looking wild, toward Sedona, to a quiet cabin owned by a friend of Carol's, rented under the radar. No paper trail, no expectations. The plan was simple. No contact, no confrontation, no explanations. Let silence do what yelling never could. Back in Phoenix, Samantha exploded. First a call, straight to voicemail, then a text. Where the hell are you? You need to sign the entry forms before Monday. I didn't reply. 2 days later. I tried to access your accounts. Everything's locked. Did you change something? Still nothing. Then a voicemail, no words at first, just breathing. Then, her voice, low and venomous, you'll regret this. But I didn't. Carol helped me open a new bank account. We registered my new ID and updated all the documents under a private trust. And then we mailed 1 copy of the will, just one, to her attorney. No cover letter, no post-it, just a title in bold. Updated will, 100% disinheritance clause. Let that echo. I didn't want revenge that screamed. I didn't want headlines or courtrooms. I wanted silence, the kind that rattles walls, the kind that keeps people up at night. And now, she has to live with it. Not just the money, not just the house, but the knowledge that someone else, someone she ignored, someone she dismissed, was the one who stood at that gate, smiling, calling me Dad, as I stepped off that plane. 3 months later, the world had gone quiet in the best way possible. Not the silence that follows grief, not the kind that feels like absence or ache. This was different. This was the hush of peace, of still mornings and long evenings, of knowing no one could pull the rug from under me anymore. No more paperwork shoved across the table like an ultimatum. No more forced signatures beneath the banner of love. No more weaponized smiles or veiled manipulations. No more, Dad, just sign this. Spoken through gritted teeth like I was some stubborn line item in a spreadsheet. That morning I woke to birdsong. Real birdsong, not a ringtone, not a delivery truck, backing up. Just the call and response of jays and sparrows outside the window. The air smelled like pine sap and wood smoke. Sharp, earthy. The kind of scent that anchors you in place and whispers, this is real. I stretched slowly. Old bones, familiar creaks. But no pain today. Not the kind that hides behind the ribs. Carol was already in the kitchen. The cabin was small enough that I could hear every movement. The soft clink of a spoon in a mug. The shuffle of slippered feet across the worn floorboards. She was humming, off-key. Same tune she always hummed when she was trying not to burn breakfast. Eggs, toast, and the same weak coffee you make fun of, she called out. Except today I added cinnamon. Fancy, right? I chuckled. Just don't burn the toast this time, Julia child. She stuck her tongue out at me as I rounded the corner. Sunlight spilled through the small window behind her, catching in her hair, turning everything gold. The cabin had bare floors, one flickering lamp, and walls that creaked in the wind like old knees. But it felt more like home than the house I'd lived in for 40 years. because no one looked at me like I was in the way here. No one tried to fix my life with clipboards and facility brochures. No one tried to parent the man who'd raised them. Here I was just Frank. Not problem, not package, just a man who still mattered. One afternoon a letter arrived, forwarded from my old address. Thick envelope, embossed return label. Not from Samantha, from her lawyer. A formal notice, requesting reconsideration of the estate's distribution. They cited emotional distress, implied expectations, familial bonds. I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, because it was predictable, because nothing she did was about family. It was about control, and expectations don't win in probate court, documents do. I called my attorney, asked him to reply with 3 simple things: a scanned copy of the updated notarized digital will, the official POA cancellation form I filed the day I landed. 1 single sentence: you don't get to claim inheritance from someone you tried to erase. I never heard back. I assume she yelled, blamed the system, posted something passive-aggressive online. Maybe she even tried to shame me in some vague Facebook post. Parents can be cruel too, but I wouldn't know, because I stopped checking, I stopped watching, I stopped waiting. Because something happens when you stop hoping for an apology that's never coming. The world opens up, like a window in a stale room. Everything smells clearer, feels lighter. Now, I spend most mornings walking the trails behind the cabin. The dirt crunches under my boots in a way that reminds me I'm still here, that I still have places to go, even if I take my time getting there. Sometimes Carol joins me. Other times, she lets me walk alone. She knows I, like the quiet, knows when I need space, knows when to just be. She's taken to calling me Pops when no one's around. The first time, she looked embarrassed. "Too soon?" she asked. I smiled. No, not soon enough. Because love doesn't require a blood test. It requires presence. It shows up with soup when you're sick, not signatures when you're vulnerable. We took a photo the other day, a timer shot, me and her on the porch, both holding mismatched mugs, looking like we'd lived 100 lives together. We printed a copy, framed it. I mailed one to Samantha. No note, no caption, just the image, because I wanted her to see. Someone else had filled the seat she kicked over, and she couldn't get it back. Not with apologies. Not with paperwork. Not even with regret. Last week, I made a final decision. I sold the house in Phoenix. The one with the creaky stairs, the broken gate, the rose bush that hadn't bloomed since my wife passed. I donated half the profit to a scholarship fund for elder care nurses, the kind who don't talk over you, the kind who remember your name, even when your hands shake. The other half went into a trust. Carol's name on the papers, for school, or a down payment on a home, or just whatever dream she wants to chase when her time comes. She cried when I told her, tried to say no. I held up my hand. "You didn't ask for any of this," she said. "No, but you gave it anyway. Now, when I drive, I roll the windows down, I let the wind in, let the road noise fill the cabin, let the years behind me rattle loose like pebbles in a jar. The road never asks where you've been, only where you're going. And I like that, because I don't carry shame anymore, just memories, some bruised, some beautiful. Samantha once said, "You're not family," and maybe she was right. Because family isn't an obligation. It's not about blood or signatures or Thanksgiving dinners. It's about who stays, who shows up when you need them, who holds your hand without asking what's in your will. Family is soup on a cold night. It's a second mug set out without needing to be asked. It's quiet walks where no one tries to fix you, just walk beside you. Tonight, the sky is folding into lavender and ash, soft as a quilt. Slow as forgiveness. Carol just flipped on the porch light. Even though I always tell her I like the dark, she says, "Just in case you change your mind." I sit here, thinking back, remembering how it felt, standing in that airport, pills scattered, people staring, and how I said nothing, how I chose silence, not because I was weak, but because I knew. There's power in what you don't say, and there's freedom in walking away without slamming the door. In the end, I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just stopped answering the ones she kept closing on me. If this story struck a chord, hit like subscribe and tell me what you think in the comments.